Today I'm going to show you 7 photography-based documentaries that you really have to watch. When you're stuck at home and can't get out to take photographs, or the weather isn't that good for any type of photography that you're into, sometimes all you want to do is chill out and put a movie on or watch a series. But if you have a look around, you can find some really interesting documentaries that are based on photography. Now, there are very different genres in this list of documentaries, but it does show that photography has no boundaries and it kind of covers everything. It doesn't take sides, it just is there to document what's happening in front of that camera or to kind of produce the vision that you have in your mind. The boundaries and the opinions are all determined by the person behind the camera or the person viewing that photograph. And that is what's so fascinating about photography. It is used in everything we do and everything we believe in. And it's great that we have these documentaries to watch that have covered the lives of so many people in our realm and show us that in fact, they have the same insecurities we do. Sometimes they have that intruder syndrome feeling and ultimately are just everyday people like you and I. And before I start the list, if you have any others that need mentioning that I've missed out, let me know in the comments below. It'll be great to see if you have any that you can share with all of us here. The first series is called Tales by Light and is on Netflix. Abraham Joffe is an excellent cinematographer and captures stunning footage of photographers in the environments that they shoot in. From Darren Jew photographing humpback whales to Art Wolfe capturing the world's most far-flung cultures. It is a fantastic series that is so inspirational and beautiful to watch. Abraham follows these photographers and you get an insight into their worlds and their thoughts behind their images. Currently, Abraham has directed 3 series and I always look forward to more episodes coming out. I've already said it, but the cinematography is absolutely stunning and it's worth watching just for that, as well as the fantastic people he follows in each episode. This next one is in a series on Netflix called Abstract: The Art of Design. But here in the Middle East, this one episode isn't available on Netflix for some reason. However, it is on the Netflix channel here on YouTube, so I've linked it in the corner. This is about a portrait and documentary photographer called Platon Antonio. His understanding of photography and the photographic medium don't get in the way of the art that he produces. It's fantastic and it's well worth a watch. Platon has photographed some of the most prominent, famous and infamous people in the world, and he has some incredibly unique angles and looks to his photography. And this documentary takes a little look into how he gets the shots that he does. Now here's a quote from this documentary. "You're looking for a moment when you feel as close to the soul as possible." And this says it all. It shows that it's not about the technical side of photography at all. It's about making a connection. And this is something I'm constantly working on with my portrait photography. Sometimes I get it straight away, and other times it really is challenging, but it's the thing that I really relish in portrait photography. Platon gets it right time and time again, and he really does get close to that person, and he really gets to know them and builds up a relationship with him and his subject, and it really shows in his photographs. Now, I've done a lot of corporate shoots where I get 5 minutes at most with some top executives in big companies. But it's so hard to get a connection and a natural look with such a short amount of time. This documentary is a really fascinating look into how Platon gets the shots that he does and how he builds up those relationships. And this is a must-watch for any photographer out there, whether or not you shoot portraits. This next one is about 2 guys, Ester and Mr. Cartoon. And again, it's on Netflix. Mr. Cartoon is a huge tattoo artist in LA, and Ester photographed a lot of his work. And also, so much in and around LA covering street culture, hip hop, and more in the mid-80s. Now, some of the stories these guys have are absolutely crazy. From Ester being the only one at a concert with a camera, to capturing some absolutely inspiring photographs of the people and the culture in LA at this time. It walks you through what they went through, the ups and downs, as well as the more gritty side of the tattoo industry, and it's another one well worth a watch. Now, this documentary has a pretty crazy title, and it's about a photographer called Mick Rock, an aptly named rock photographer. He was in his prime in the 70s, 80s and 90s, and he photographed the likes of David Bowie, Iggy Pop, Queen, Lou Reed, the Rolling Stones and many more. You'll recognize a lot of his work from the album covers and single covers from a lot of the music in the 70s, 80s and 90s. And he was actually the photographer that took the iconic front cover of the Queen album. He reflects on his life and work and really talks about how he integrated himself into this culture. Now, it must have been a crazy and fun time to be a photographer and being filmed. The learning process would have been much longer, but much more rewarding. And to be able to take such iconic photos, it's absolutely fantastic. And another documentary that's well worth watching. Don Mccullen is an extraordinary photojournalist and war photographer. He captured a lot of the brutalities of war firsthand, and this documentary covers his life and his work. I think I watched this on Netflix, but I can't seem to find it there anymore, so you might have to do a bit of digging around to find it. Now, some of his work is very moving, from covering the civil war in Cyprus, the conflict in the Congo to Vietnam. He talks about the struggles as a photographer, wanting to get the shot and at the same time wanting to stop what was going on in front of him. This documentary really makes you think about a lot and shows you the risks he took time and time again. It's because of people like Don Mccullen that these atrocities of war are brought to light for everyone to see, so hopefully these things happen less and less in our world. Now, as the title suggests, this is another one about war photography, and it was made in 2001. It's about a photographer called James Natchtwe, and he has some absolutely unique shots, including some point of view shots in some very, very dodgy situations. A bit like Mccullen, it goes into the thoughts and feelings of whether or not he should have been there in the first place. But once again, if it wasn't for these brave people, these atrocities of war would never be known to any of us. Luckily for most of us, we haven't had to go through these horrors, but in these documentaries, you get to see what happens time and time again. Now, it does surprise me how these guys can get shots in such stressful environments, and most of them would have been shooting with film. You might have to do some searching around to find this one again, but if you do find it, it's another one that's well worth your time. Now, this documentary is a little bit more light-hearted, and it follows 6 surfers as they search for the best surf breaks in Iceland. The photographer Chris Burkard has a vision for some particular photographs, and he is in search of the best locations for these. Now, the cinematographer Ben Wayland follows Chris Burkard and the 6 surfers, and he captures their journey. They go through some really harsh conditions and are faced with massive storms in their quest for some fantastic waves and some fantastic photographs. Now, if you don't know who Chris Burkard is, he's a fantastic adventure photographer and has produced some amazing pieces of work, from getting into the water, being amongst those waves, to shooting with a super telephoto lens to get really close to the action. And his landscape and action photography is definitely worth a look. He is definitely an inspirational photographer that I really look up to. Now, there are many more documentaries on photography and photographers out there, but these are my favorite 7. If you have any others that need a mention, let me know in the comments below. It'll be great to see some others, and it'll be great to see what you guys like. Now, to learn about astrophotography, click on this next video here, and to learn about off-camera flash photography, click on this video down here, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for weekly tutorials in photography. I'll see you next time.